Yeah, are you kind of one of those guys who feels like you have to go to Brazil to kind of really understand what jiu-jitsu is all about?
Definitely. I'm a huge advocate. Everyone's got to go. At least to train. Hopefully you can do a tournament too. Like I said, there's nothing like it. The energy competing in Brazil is amazing. And just, seeing where it started, getting on some puzzle mats in a small room, and like, I mean, the favelas, the way that they see it, it's like, it's a way out, people come from nothing, such humble beginnings, and they give their lives to it just to have the chance to feed their families and get them out and to get them to the U.S. and create a better life, Seeing that, I think, is super important to understand, where their hunger comes from, where their fire, and know the history, yeah, there's nothing like it, man. Like, and there's so many good guys down there. I mean, there's good people everywhere, but every time I go, I discover someone new, like a kid that has already won the Brasileiro like 25 to, like every year since he was 5 years old, you know what I mean? And there's always new ones. There's always new generations coming up. I'll never forget, here's a nice story. I grew up going to Brazil. Obviously, I've already spoken about that. And I idolized everybody. All the great champions, I just was in awe of them. I watched Saulo when I was a little kid. In 2000, I was in the warm-up area next to Saulo because I was fighting in the Juvenile Absolute, which was on Saturday, the same time the Black Belt Absolute was, because the Black Belt Absolute was first. And I made it to the finals of the Juvenile Absolute, so I was there for a long time. So I got to be in the warm-up area with all the black belts as the Black Belt Absolute got smaller and smaller. And I idolized Saulo. And then years later, that was 2000. 3 years later, I competed against him. But the Worlds came to the U.S. in 2007. Now, I won the Brasileiro that year, but I wasn't a world champion yet. I won the Worlds a few months later, but it was on U.S. soil. And I didn't go back to Brazil again until 2010. I went back for the Brasileiro again. I did well. I made it to the absolute finals, but I lost to Bernardo in the final. But that was the first time I had been back to Brazil since becoming a world champion and really kind of getting my name up there. And I'll never forget the first time I fought. It was Saturday, and I reached the absolute finals, like I said. So I was successful on the first day. And it was the first time that Brazilians asked me for a picture. And there was this group of Brazilian teenagers, young kids, and they're speaking in Portuguese, and they asked to take a picture, and I was just like, wait, you're talking to me? You know what I mean? It literally had just hit me in that moment. It was like, oh man, I can't believe this. I've come full circle. I used to be that kid, but I was an American, here in this other country, and I dreamed of being a champion in Brazil. I dreamed of it. And now they're looking up to me, an American. It didn't feel right, and I took the picture with them, and I immediately, one of my students was there with me, and I immediately said something to him. I was like, dude, I can't believe that. That was the first time that's ever happened. And I had a whole moment like, man, I've come full circle, It was incredible. And I ended up losing, but then I went back 3 years later and I got that absolute title. But I kept going back because of how important it was to me to keep Brazil in my heart, and like I said, I grew up fighting there, and I always wanted to be a champion there. And so, of course, Brasileiro became the biggest and best tournament to do there. And so I kept going back. And then once I made the transition to MMA took me back to Brazil, to a whole nother area, Curitiba, the South. And now I'm going there to study Muay Thai and train MMA, and that's been my life all the way till, recently. So I've literally been going to Brazil for 20 years. to learn. And you know, I've just always enjoyed the culture, the way that they see the martial arts, the history that's there. Curitiba is a whole nother history. The Muay Thai with the European, the Dutch going there and building this Muay Thai culture in the south of Brazil. You know, Anderson, Shogun. My teachers they grew up with them. You know, Vanderlei and. So anyways, that's off subject, but yeah, I am 100%. If you love martial arts in general, if you do martial arts in any sense, you got to see martial arts in Brazil. You know, Jiu Jitsu, Muay Thai, MMA, the way they train, the family vibe, the passion is unmatched to me.
There are a lot of people out there, though, who don't like this American Jiu-Jitsu term. Do you understand why people don't like the term, or maybe you can tell us why you think some people don't like this term? It seems like it can be a divisive term.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of it really. You know, as I kind of said, my reasons why. So yeah, I understand. You know, especially like the sport, it comes from Brazil. You know, this, of course, we can trace it back, but what we're doing today, you know, was developed in Brazil, and they, you know, maybe some were a little more stingy with it than others, but over time, you know, so many of these Brazilians, these great champions and just great teachers and great people in general have come here and, you know, given their all to teach Americans, to make America their home, and you know, literally become family. You know, I'm not going to say that there isn't their own a bit of favoritism or bias or whatever that goes on with fellow countrymen. You know, but why are we going to fight that with the same thing? You know, and you know, I'm never gonna just, I'm only gonna teach Americans, or we do American Jiu-Jitsu, like that. You're doing the same thing essentially. If that was something that turned you off and rubbed you the wrong way, and maybe is motivating you to do it because you were mistreated, well then you're just, you know, recycling it. You know, so for me it's all love. I mean, you know, like, yeah, I just think the art is first and foremost, and it's for everybody.
What would you prefer we call it?
Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu, that's it, Jiu-Jitsu. I don't like Jits. I don't like, it's Jiu-Jitsu. I don't like calling schools gyms. They're schools, they're academies, you know, respect the art. And yeah, it's Jiu-Jitsu.